Alastair Campbell, hello, how are you?
I'm all right, Joe. How are you?
Yeah. I'm good, I'm good. News. Just now, Douglas Ross, the Undersecretary of State for Scotland, has resigned. He said, and I'll quote it at length because it's pretty powerful,
Mm.
I have constituents who didn't get to say goodbye to loved ones, families who could not mourn together or mourn for sick relatives because they followed the advice of the government. I cannot in good faith tell them they were wrong and a senior government advisor was right.
Mm. Spot on.
He's pretty
I
bang
mean,
on.
absolutely. I mean, I've just written my column for the New European this week, and I mean, I've had nothing like the sort of thing he's describing there, let alone some of this stuff I've been watching on social media today. There's a film that actually I couldn't even bear to watch to the end. Was a woman who she'd filmed herself talking to her dad as he was dying, and she put it there to in the hope that some of these venal charlatans running the country at the moment might actually reflect on it. But I've had two friends have died during the lockdown.
I'm sorry.
One of them, a friend who's more than a friend, actually, a guy called Sid Young, who was my mentor in the Daily Mirror, 20 years older than me. I saw him in Bristol just before he died, and then between the death and the funeral, the lockdown came. So even his wife couldn't go to the funeral because she was self-isolating with symptoms. So the only people at the funeral were his three kids. Nobody else could go. Another friend who died, only his wife and his two sons could go. We've had a new member of our family born to my sister's son up north. Apart from the parents, nobody's seen him. Everybody's had to do this, everybody. And what I found is incredible about Cummings' performance yesterday, and even worse, I guess, Johnson afterwards, just trying to thinking Dominic's spoken about that, no more to say, was he genuinely seemed to think, and he kept saying that he was confident if people, having heard his side of the story, they'd understand it. His side of the story made it worse because it exposed so many of the previous lies that had been told, which they're now trying to rewrite. I hate using the word favourite, but one of the moments that I really did smile at yesterday was Gary Neville. And you know you've lost it when the whole country is laughing at you, right? David Lloyd, the cricket commentator, was absolutely lacerating them. Gary Neville did a tweet, said this is the worst press conference since an England manager tried to justify a 7-0 defeat in Barcelona. So, I think this is not going to go away. I wish it would because, I think at a time like this, if you had a serious prime minister, a serious government, rather than this kind of nodding dog cabinet that we've got, then they would be doing nothing. Absolutely nothing but total focus and grip on tracing and testing, on PPE, on the mental health challenge that's coming, on what's going on in prisons. And, I've got to say, I don't like saying this in a way, but I really, really, really hope people don't bother going out on Thursday night. I think the NHS know that the country totally appreciates what they do, but it's been exploited by these charlatans. Johnson out there with his girlfriend clapping, Hancock on the roof of the health department clapping. Let them get on and do it on their own. I'm not going out on Thursday, and I hope other people say no. I'll find other ways of expressing gratitude to the NHS.
Yeah, I think the organizer has actually said that they want this to be the last time that it happens, essentially. But there's a point here about the papers. I think I saw an unattributed quote to a senior New Labour government figure, which I assumed was you. But it said
I don't do unattributed quotes.
No, sorry, it was someone else saying something that they'd heard from a senior New Labour figure that when the Guardian and the Daily Mail are both after you, you should give up. There's no point in contesting it.
No, I don't buy that.
Oh, go on.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because I saw a tweet last night from Robbie Gibb, who used to work at the BBC when it was accused of being run by lefties, and who went to work for Downing Street under Theresa May. Not very good at either of the jobs, to be absolutely frank, but he did a tweet last night saying that after Cummings' performance, he's done enough to make sure this story's gone away by Friday. That's how these people think. It's all they care about. They don't actually, if you honestly think that your job in there is to try and get to a place where, we've got the Guardian and the Mail, for or against us, it doesn't matter. What matters is the public, and what matters is actually doing the job you're there to do. And the job the Prime Minister and the Cabinet are there to do is get the country through this crisis. And listen, just imagine what yesterday was like in Whitehall. Just imagine. All of them, all day. Oh, Dominic's doing a press conference. Where's it going to be? When I was told, I got a message from somebody there saying, "You won't believe this. It's going to be in the garden, in the garden." I honestly thought that's got to be a joke. Mm. I thought, what has happened to any sort of civil service rules and norms? It's in the garden. Okay, it goes in the garden. Then I guarantee you, virtually every single minister, every single senior press officer, every single person working on meant to be driving government policy forward was sitting yesterday afternoon watching that car crash. They've lost the plot. They've totally lost the plot. And I think what it says to the public, look, I think most of my life, I'm obviously a Labour person, even though I'm not in the party at the moment, but I'm a Labour person. I was a journalist when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. I was a journalist when John Major was Prime Minister. And I used to write some very harsh things about both of them. I was very critical of a lot of their policies, and I was working for a paper that was avowedly against them, wanted rid of them. But I respected them both as people, and I respected them both as prime ministers. This guy, how can you respect this guy? And once you've got a situation where two things come together, one, rules do not apply equally to all, and the country does not have a basic element of respect for its leadership, country's had it. Country's had it.
Do you think we can expect or should demand that other ministers resign in the same way that Douglas Ross has?
Well, we can. The problem is, Ollie, that we can demand all we want, but as you saw yesterday, the normal rules don't apply. This is like Trump. It's like Orban. But I'd say about Trump. I mean, I think Trump's an awful person and a terrible president, but at least he's got the balls to put himself out there a bit and fight a bit. Johnson just hides away. He was only out last night to bring out a few measures that have got nothing to do with the science and everything to do, as you say, getting the papers on board. And look at the papers today. Daily Express, Comic, hurrah, literally, hurrah. Shops are opening. The Sun, back to business. The Telegraph, UK returns to normality. Whoa, if that was normal yesterday, then I am a mouse. So I just think it's pathetic, and that they can't see what the public is saying about this. And this is what makes me laugh about Cummings. He's meant to be this great maverick genius with his finger on the pulse of the people. He thinks the people are going to be sympathetic to the fact that while his government was telling everybody to stay at home, he decided that doesn't apply to me, made up this concoction. And his story falls apart on any analysis. I mean, bear with me on this. He runs out of Downing Street with the cameras in front of him, right? He may know by now there are several back doors. You do not have to be seen leaving Downing Street. You're seen leaving Downing Street like that if you want to be. He goes home. He then goes back to Downing Street. That's why yesterday he had to say his wife wasn't well, she was throwing up, but she didn't have a fever or a cough. Because if she'd had symptoms, which she probably did, because he's a liar and I don't believe what he said, he wouldn't have gone back to Downing Street, put people at risk. He then drives to Durham and he doesn't have symptoms. With this child, and I've got every sympathy for the child, it's not his fault who his parents are. It's not his fault that they're liars. And they head up to Durham, and then we're expected to believe that, these people are for the people, right? They're not for the elite. But they're in this nice compound with lots of different properties in the same place, with nice woods where they can go and, hang out with each other, because we've all got that, compounds and woods and lots of different houses. And then this was the one that I think got Gary Neville going, and a lot of other people besides, that the illness, which, by the way, in The Spectator, when his wife wrote about it, he could barely breathe and she was worrying, will he have to go on a ventilator? No, actually what the illness was doing is making eyesight a bit fuzzy. Well, there's an obvious way you deal with your eyesight if it's a bit fuzzy. You go for a drive. You go for a drive to a castle, because why wouldn't you go to a drive to a castle? This would be nice to look at and to see whether your eyes can actually see that that's a castle. I mean, and then that clown of a prime minister tries to make a joke of it, gets his glasses out of his pocket last night and says, I get this coronavirus because I've had to wear my glasses for the first time in Years. The same guy who 6 years ago said he was blind as a bat without his glasses. Lie, lie, lie. Cover up, cover up, cover up. Corrupt, corrupt, corrupt. Venal, venal, venal.
Michael Gove also said this morning, didn't he? Well, he got halfway through saying that he had gone on a drive himself to test his eyesight. It was with Nick Ferrari on LBC, and then he started to row back, realising how spectacularly bizarre it was to say that. Just finally, Alastair.
I wonder if it might actually be a criminal offence.
Yeah, I think it could be, couldn't it? Driving dangerously, perhaps.
Driving, putting other people at risk. Yeah, the police need to go onto Mr. Gove, definitely.
So, just finally, you've been in that same position as Cummings, sort of, at war with the... Well, not specifically this one, but at war with the media when working in Downing Street. You know, everyone knows your relationship with the BBC was fraught. Did you feel a degree of sympathy for him during that press conference, Alastair?
Absolutely none whatsoever, for several reasons. The first is I would never have put my Prime Minister in that position, ever. If, for whatever inexplicable reason I had, he wouldn't have needed to sack me, I'd have gone. Actually, I'll tell you another thing. My missus would have made me go. In fact, here's another thing. She wouldn't have allowed us to get in the car. We haven't been out, right? And we've obeyed the rules as everybody else has. So that wouldn't have happened. That's the first thing. And then the other thing, you say he's at war with the media. Look at the papers today. They still, when this lot say jump, some of the papers say how high. So the idea that, and I actually think one of the problems we've got in our country and our culture is that the government gets away with more incompetence. Do you think these briefings they've been doing, I mean, they're not scared of those briefings. And yesterday you saw with Johnson last night. I mean, if I sent a message to Pippa Crerar, who I think has been great, the editor of the Mirror, political editor of the Mirror. She's the chair of the lobby. And I said to her, listen, if I was a journalist now, I would get together with you guys and I'd say, look, just send a message to the government, do your briefings, but we're not covering them live. We'll assess the news value once you've done them. We're not going to ask the questions because you're not allowing follow-ups. And also, Dominic Cummings is the only person for whom you actually allow physical presence. Donald Trump does socially distanced briefings. Andrew Cuomo in New York has done them every single day. Other leaders have had human beings to ask questions, and not this sort of, hear the question, didn't quite hear that, what do you say, answer something different, cut you off. I mean, it's pathetic. They're pathetic people.
It's a pretty damning place to leave it. Alastair Campbell, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
All the best and good.